This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for checking in. We've got a messy mix of wintry precip headed our way. Rain, ice, and snow, all in the offering tomorrow. The best chance of snow is near and north of the New York State Thruway. Freezing rain, a real possibility in the Twin Tiers, and then just plain rain closer to I-80 in Pennsylvania. Watch out for the possibility of ice jam flooding tomorrow. Meteorologist Kevin Williams tells us who gets what, where, and when coming up in his forecast. But first at noon today, aviation disaster in the nation's capital.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone.
A commercial jetliner and an Army helicopter collided last night around 9 o'clock near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Reporter Chris Van Cleve says the plane was just about to land.
It was in the final steps of its final approach when this collision happened. It is possible that the pilots of the airplane never even saw the helicopter coming.
Former NTSB Chief Robert Sumwalt.
I've landed on that runway many times. You're in the turn. You're looking to line up with that runway. You're not looking out here for other traffic at that point. The real question is, where was the focus of that helicopter crew?
The Black Hawk helicopter was on a training mission when it crashed into the American Airlines jet out of Wichita, Kansas. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall says there are no survivors.
When one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many, many, many people die, it's an unbearable sorrow. It's a heartbreak beyond measure.
There were 3 soldiers on the chopper, 64 souls aboard that plane, including several representatives with USA Skating. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
Everyone who flies in American skies expects that we fly safely, that when you depart an airport, you get to your destination. That didn't happen last night. And I know that President Trump, the FAA, the DOT, we will not rest until we have answers for the families and for the flying public. You should be assured that when you fly, you're safe.
President Trump spoke this morning about the crash, as did the new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. It is the nation's worst aviation disaster in nearly 20 years. The main runway there at Reagan Airport has been ranked the busiest in America, with more than 800 daily takeoffs and landings. Another Israeli hostage held by Hamas was freed today in Gaza. 20-year-old Agam Berger, a female soldier, had been held by the terror group since it invaded Israel nearly 500 days ago. That invasion triggered a war that's claimed almost 50,000 lives. Correspondent Linda Gradstein is in Jerusalem.
Surrounded by dozens of masked and armed Hamas gunmen, Berger, looking pale and dressed in a military uniform, was handed to the Red Cross and then transferred to Israeli soldiers. She was one of 5 female Israeli soldiers Hamas kidnapped from an army base near Gaza on October 7, 2023.
For the release of Berger and the other hostages, Israel says it will let go more than 100 Palestinian prisoners. President Trump's ordered the construction of a mass detention camp for illegal immigrants at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
We're ramping up for the possibility to expand mass deportations because President Trump is dead serious about getting illegal criminals out of our country.
This is not the first time that a U.S. president has sought to use Camp Gitmo to house migrants. President Clinton sent over 30,000 Cubans and Haitians there back in the mid-90s. Robert Kennedy Jr. facing a second day of questioning at his Senate confirmation hearing today. The president's pick for Health and Human Services Secretary being grilled by lawmakers for his views on vaccines and abortions. Health and fitness advocate Caroline Cavallero thinks RFK's outside-the-box thinking is just what the country needs.
We're at a fork in the road, and really what's at stake is American health. We can either continue with the healthcare system, or as some like to say, the sick care healthcare system that we have, or we can go a different way. And that the way that RFK Jr. is proposing is that we actually get to the root causes of this chronic disease epidemic that we're seeing that's impacting our children.
Also facing tough Senate confirmation hearings today are Kash Patel, the president's pick for FBI director, and Tulsi Gabbard, tapped to head the Department of National Intelligence. Former Senator Bob Menendez was sentenced yesterday to 11 years in prison for accepting bribes and acting as a foreign agent for Egypt.
This is the end of the road for Bob Menendez. Not only will he no longer be in the Senate, but he'll frankly be imprisoned for most of the rest of his life.
Legal analyst Lori Levinson, President Trump has just signed another executive order. This one prioritizes funding for school choice.
The move impacts several departments on a federal level and prioritizes school choice programs through discretionary grants. The order says that within 60 days, the Secretary of Education will provide clarity on how states can use federal formula funds to support K-12 educational choice initiatives. School choice provides vouchers allowing families to pick schools for their children. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
After a week on the job, President Trump has just under a 50% approval rating from the American people. His disapproval rating of 41% is the lowest that Trump has ever received as president. This poll was conducted by Emerson College. The survey shows Trump is above water with every age group except one, the over 70 crowd. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Thursday. Checks in the mail in PA. Professional soccer in Buffalo, and local clerk challenges the two-gender rule.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, watching a system that's going to produce some messy weather here tomorrow and tomorrow night. Rain, ice, and snow in the mix. Forecast details are up in 10.
All right, we'll keep our eye on it. Thank you, Kevin. Let's check the stories making news where you live. All across New York and Pennsylvania, a pro-life activist in Pennsylvania says the president's approach to immigration enforcement does not run contrary to biblical teaching.
The Apostle Paul spoke at the Areopagus, as recounted in Acts chapter 17. It is God who formed the nations and set their boundaries in place. So the existence of boundaries is not just a human invention, and by their very definition, boundaries or borders are a requirement for there to be distinct nations.
Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. The New York State Legislature advancing 5 bills that promote, protect, and expand abortion. Jason McGuire with New York Family.
Right now, one of the bills that the Senate passed would actually allow for a new training program in New York for abortionists. And they specifically indicated this would not just be for New York abortionists, but we would bring people from across the country to be trained in how to bring abortion back to their places in the country.
McGuire says the more pro-life the federal government gets, the more pro-abortion New York becomes. A cyber attack has exposed the records of more than 134,000 students in the Rochester, New York school district.
Hundreds of districts in the United States and Canada are affected.
That's Adam Urbanski, president of the Rochester Teachers Association. Cybersecurity expert Jonathan Weisman tells WHAM 13.
A Power School employee's credentials were compromised, and as a result, the cyber criminals were able to access that account and gain access to the treasure trove of information on faculty, students, and staff.
Names, home addresses, phone numbers, and even medical information was compromised by the hack attack. Once again, Jonathan Weisman.
Every parent out there should freeze their children's credit. When a cyber criminal steals the identity of a child, it can go undetected for really long periods of time.
Power School is an internet-based student management system used by districts all across the country. It plans to notify those impacted by this breach in the coming weeks. A Pennsylvania high school's been forced to go remote due to rampant illness. Family Life's Brian Query on the story.
For one Dauphin County school, illness is spreading, and the school is going to flexible instruction to help curb the spread. Bishop McDevitt High School will have virtual learning days for students after an illness caused hundreds of absences. A staff member at the high school reported hundreds of staff and students absent on Wednesday. The number of ill teachers led to a shuffling of staff to cover classrooms. Virtual learning days will be implemented on Thursday and Friday with the hope of returning to in-person classes on Monday. The exact nature of the illness circulating through the school is not clear at this time. Brian Query, Family Life News.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul's rolled out her plan to make college more affordable. She wants to make community college free of charge for older students who pursue degrees in high-demand fields. Hochul says with Micron coming to Syracuse, a skilled labor force will be vital.
We have high demand for skilled workers. We can help absorbing the cost of a tuition, and we'll put that for adults, 25 to 55-year-olds, so they have an opportunity that otherwise may have passed them by.
Those high-demand fields also include nursing and education.
We have jobs open in those fields right now, and hopefully this will incentivize more young people or people early in their careers or someone who wants to transition from an existing career to say, great, I get this degree, I will have a job waiting for me.
The governor making the announcement at Onondaga Community College in Syracuse. Now, if approved by the state legislature, free community college for older New Yorkers might be a reality as soon as next fall. More than 8,000 Pennsylvanians will soon be getting letters in the mail, letting them know that a check from the state is on the way. It's part of the Money Match program. State Treasurer Stacey Garrity.
So we're talking about the dormant accounts. We're talking about, uncashed checks. They could be royalty checks. They could be an old stock, an old bond.
Residents with unclaimed property will receive funds in the mail approximately 45 days after they get the letter. A Pennsylvania community hoping to stave off major economic disaster. Details on that from Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, the mayor of Blossburg Borough is warning that a plant employing about 340 people is at risk of shutting down unless a new buyer can be found. ASC Engineered Solutions is set to vacate the former Ward manufacturing facility, shifting the Blossburg operation to its plant in Lancaster County over the next year, offering employees the opportunity to relocate, along with severance packages for those who don't. Representative Clint Owlett says local officials are working to try to find a new buyer to keep the Blossburg plant going. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
A Western New York County clerk is condemning President Trump's executive order on gender. The president says there are just two genders, male and female, but Monroe County Clerk Jamie Romeo's not so sure. She's expressing support for transgender people, arguing it's wrong for the government to, quote, tell people who they are. End quote. President Trump says he will no longer allow people to mark X on sex when applying for documents like passports. This week is Radon Awareness Week. That odorless, colorless gas causes more than 20,000 deaths every year. In fact, it's the second leading cause of lung cancer behind cigarette smoking. Pennsylvania's radon program manager Bob Lewis says radon detection kits cost just $20 and can be a real lifesaver.
We focus on residential homes, but we also encourage schools, school districts, and schools to do the testing, as well as just even commercial buildings, libraries, police stations, things of that nature.
Lewis says radon tests should be done every couple of years by homeowners. A group's trying to bring professional soccer back to Buffalo and is eyeballing a downtown site for a 10,000-seat stadium. 3 sites are under consideration, including the former headquarters of the Buffalo News. Connor Hawkins runs a soccer-themed pub nearby.
To have a stadium that's going to hold 10,000 people having soccer downtown Buffalo feels great.
There's also a site under consideration in the town of Ellicott in Chautauqua County. Councilwoman Leah Halden-Pope.
If there is a true community benefit attached to this, it is probably going to make it more appealing for funders from every walk of life. And so I think a public-private partnership works.
Buffalo Pro Soccer seeking millions in state funding to get a team up and running by 2026. We've got more sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, it is a tale of 2 streaks, and the fact that one continued and the other ended was good news for New York basketball. Jalen Brunson had a big night for the Knicks, 30 points and 15 assists as New York knocked off Denver 122-112. OG Anunoby chipped in with 23 points, and Karl Anthony Towns had a double-double, 14 points and 10 boards. The Knicks won their 5th straight game. The Nets' 7-game losing streak is over after their 104-83 victory over Charlotte. Brooklyn had a very balanced attack. No one broke 20 points for the team, but they did have 6 guys in double figures. Speaking of streaks, the 76ers continued their winning ways, taking their 4th in a row, a 117-104 win over the Kings. Tyrese Maxey once again led the way for Philly, tossing down 30 points. Also winning on the hardwood, the Pacers, Raptors, Celtics, Cavs, Mavs, Clippers, T-Wolves, and Warriors. And the Thunder's lost to Golden State. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander scored 52 points. On the ice, future Hall of Famers Sid the Kid Crosby netted the game winner with a minute to play in overtime, and he helped the Penguins edge Utah 3-2. Marcus Peterson and Erik Karlsson also scored for Pittsburgh. The Flyers and Devils ended up splitting their home-and-home series after Jersey shut down Philly 5-0. Philadelphia now dropping 3 of their last 4. The Wild 3-1 winners over Toronto. Florida shut out LA 3-0, and the Canucks skated to a 3-1 victory over Nashville. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come, no survivors from D.C. plane crash, detaining migrants at Camp Gitmo, and marriage matters in Buffalo.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. A recent gut-wrenching story from the New York Times Magazine should be required reading for anyone thinking about employing in vitro fertilization. After a mix-up, 2 California couples ended up carrying, birthing, and raising each other's baby girls for several months. Ultimately, the 2 sets of parents made the unbearable decision to switch children, choosing custody of their genetic daughters over the ones they had welcomed, nursed, and loved. Though describing here a rare occurrence, the story illustrates why this under-regulated industry needs far more oversight, as the author notes. What's missed in the piece, however, is that the main problems with this kind of assisted reproduction aren't the freak accidents, not the things that might but probably won't go wrong. No, the main issue are the any number of things that go wrong anytime that babies are created in ways that ignore God's design for the family. For example, just as tragic as parents learning that they must give up a baby they thought was theirs is when one genetic parent conceives a child without wanting the other parent to ever be involved in that child's life. And unlike a rare embryo mix-up, that kind of parental alienation is common in the fertility industry. The Guardian recently reported that the number of single women seeking fertility treatments in the UK has now more than tripled in just the last decade, outpacing the growth of IVF in general and even the growth of same-sex couples seeking to make a baby. In her Guardian article about it, Amelia Hill quoted several women who chose to become solo mothers. They feel, quote-unquote, empowered because they did it on their own. And typically, the father's relegated to the status of sperm donor. One single 45-year-old, conscious of her own ticking biological clock, described it this way, quote, I'm never going to meet anybody. I think doing it without a partner is probably a bit easier. I worried whether my daughter would mind not having a dad, but now I think it's good not to have rushed into a relationship that might not have worked simply for that reason, end quote. According to the mother, the whole experience has been liberating. People would ask, she says, did he leave you or did you leave him? And it felt good to be able to say, nope, I did it on my own. But of course, she didn't do it on her own. No woman, no man has ever had a child on their own. In her case, and in the case of every single one of the thousands of single women in the West turning to science to give them children, there's still always a father involved. And think about it, in any other situation where a father's alive but absent, he'd be considered a deadbeat. The child and the mother would rightly be considered abandoned and wronged. But somehow, in this case, choosing abandonment is empowerment and progress for women. Tragically, there are many Christians who approach surrogacy and embryo-destructive IVF with the same, the kids will be all right, the ends justifies the means assumption, as long as adults are getting what they want. It's completely backwards, because the first consideration when it comes to marriage and procreation is what God intended. This allows us to know for sure what's best for children, what and whom they have a right to, and how children were meant to come into the world. Failing to answer those questions has subjected children to serious harm, even when all the technology works right. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
Thank you much, John. Outside we go next. Kevin Williams.
Here's your Family Life weather forecast for this afternoon. Sunshine and some patchy clouds. High temperatures in the 30s. Clouds will increase tonight. Rain and areas of freezing rain will reach portions of Pennsylvania late. Low temps 20s. Tomorrow it's rain, ice, and snow. With high temps in the 30s and low 40s. The best chance of any snow accumulations will be near and north of the thruway. There'll be a little icy glaze forming. And then for Saturday, leftover flurries and some sun much colder. High temps 20.
All right, Kevin, thank you. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price, and here's what's happening Thursday, January 30th. There are no survivors from the collision between an American Airlines jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter last night. They went plunging into the Potomac River in Washington, D.C.
I just saw a fireball, and then it was just gone. So I haven't seen anything since they hit the river.
The plane was attempting to land at Reagan National Airport when it crashed into that chopper, which was on a training mission.
Certainly something went very, very wrong here. Something that hasn't gone wrong in the United States in 16 years. That's the last time there was a commercial airplane crash.
Reporter Chris Van Cleve says there were 64 souls aboard that jet, which originated from Wichita, Kansas. 3 soldiers were on the chopper.
We are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors.
D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly. More from correspondent Tom Costello.
Authorities say the plane broke into 2 pieces upon impact in the river, while the helicopter was upside down in the water. The water temperature, a frigid 35 degrees, cold enough to render a person unconscious within 15 to 30 minutes.
On that jet were several representatives with USA Skating, including 2 former Russian champions. They were returning to the nation's capital from a skating camp in the Midwest. Hamas today set free 8 more Israeli hostages as part of a fragile truce deal with the state of Israel. They include a female Israeli soldier, 2 Israeli civilians, and 5 residents of Thailand, all taken during the October 7th invasion. Reporter Linda Gradstein has more on the hostages let go today.
They had to walk among thousands of jeering Palestinians guarded by armed Hamas members. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he ordered a delay in the release of Palestinian prisoners slated to be freed today until the safe passage of the Israeli hostages can be assured.
It's another day of tough questioning for RFK Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr., the president's pick for Health and Human Services Secretary, getting grilled at a Senate confirmation hearing. Many in the healthcare community support the nominee, arguing something has got to change.
We're 4% of the population, and we take 55% of the drugs that are actually produced in the world. The fact that 6 out of 10 Americans have a chronic condition. The fact that 74% of all people in America are considered overweight. Those are problems.
Jordan Vaughn with the Independent Medical Alliance says Kennedy is just what the doctor ordered, so to speak, when it comes to fixing what ails America's healthcare industry.
What the last 4 to 5 years kind of revealed is our medical, what I would call medical industrial complex, is less than honest and less than functional.
Kennedy's vowed, if confirmed, he will work to end America's epidemic of chronic disease. The president's pick to head national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, appearing on Capitol Hill today at her Senate confirmation hearing. The former Democratic congresswoman turned Trump ally is facing tough questions about a meeting she had in 2017 with exiled Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Also sitting for a confirmation hearing today is Kash Patel, the president's pick for FBI director. The Trump administration's making plans to detain 30,000 illegal immigrants at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
This is a temporary transit to humanely move illegals out of our country where they do not belong back to the the countries where they came from in proper process.
It's not the first time that a U.S. president has sought to use Camp Gitmo to detain migrants. President Clinton did it back in the mid-1990s. President Trump has just signed the Laken-Riley Act. Riley's mother, Allison Phillips, attended yesterday's bill signing ceremony.
We're so thankful of that. Her passion for helping others and her legacy for doing good in the name of Jesus Christ will carry on.
The Georgia nursing student was murdered just over a year ago by an illegal immigrant. Phillips says this law ensures her daughter will never be forgotten. Next at noon, Marriage Matters. Family Life Today hosting a Weekend to Remember Marriage Retreat. It happens March 21st through the 23rd at the Hyatt Regency in Buffalo. Tony and Vanita Mitchell are the guest speakers, and I spoke with them a short while ago.
It's a retreat as well as a marriage checkup. So you get a little bit of being away from your everyday stuff, but you're in an environment where you can sit and focus on where you are in your marriage.
Tony, give me one good reason why I should make a point of attending this marriage getaway.
I often say that we invest more in getting a driver's license than we do a marriage license, and this investment pays off. You will get closer to your spouse, and you will realize what oneness really is. What is oneness, and how can we achieve it?
Yeah. If you would briefly, Vanita, explain what our listeners can expect when they attend a Weekend to Remember retreat.
Well, what's going to happen is you'll be in an audience with other couples, but strangely enough, you'll feel like it's just the two of you together. You'll have the opportunity to focus on different issues in your marriage, the communication, sex, marriage conflict. There's all kinds of topics that will help you guys move towards what we call oneness.
Yeah. One of the great misperceptions about these sorts of things, Tony, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that this sort of thing is only for couples who are having problems in their marriage. That's not true. How come?
Yes, we hear that all the time. We have couples, I think the shortest we've ever had is someone was at the weekend that had been married 6 hours, and the longest has been somewhere around 60 years. And wherever you are, it helps you come closer to oneness. And many couples come back repeatedly in order to really continue the process.
Yeah, I don't like to equate a marriage to an automobile, Vanita, but you get your automobile checked up every so often. You should do the same with your marriage. Like I said, my wife and I have been to one of these years ago, and we're thinking about coming to Buffalo. Tell me on this, Vanita. Tell me why, even though I've been to one of these before, I should make a point to go again.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I would imagine after all these years, you're absolutely not the same person that you were when you first went. Neither is your wife. You can say every day we wake up to a different person. We're constantly changing. So it's like you said, you need to get a checkup, some fresh perspective, and it's nothing but a benefit to you and your family.
We are speaking today to Tony and Vanita Mitchell. They will be speaking at the Weekend to Remember seminar at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, Buffalo, New York, March 21st to 23rd. I'd be very curious, Tony, just to get your guys' story as how you guys found yourself in the boat you're in now, ministering to marriages.
Well, we were focused on marriage at our local church, and this is somewhere around 18 years ago, and our pastor is actually on the speaker team, so they were looking to expand the speaker team to have more speakers, and he nominated us, and we went through the process, and now we just love ministering to couples. We minister to couples in our local church, in our living room, and on stage. We're overjoyed to be able to meet people in different cities.
Well, our passion also comes from our mess. We have a lot of mess.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome, and people can relate to that. I'll be very curious. I'd love to get both your thoughts on this question. I'll start with you, Vanita. What's the best marriage advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I'm the type of person who I've got my hands on my holster. You know, I'm ready to come at you with two pistols, and so someone just said, relax and take your hands off your guns. So just be humble and enjoy your spouse.
Tony, what's the best marriage advice you've ever gotten?
Best marriage advice was never quit. And it came at a difficult time in our own marriage. As Vanita said, we have our own mess. and to not quit, because on the other side of whatever difficulty or differences we're going through is another level of enjoyment in your marriage that you would not see if you quit too early.
How many of these Weekend to Remember conferences have you guys done?
Oh my, we've done them for about 18 years and maybe around 7 to 10 per year.
Wow.
So, so we've done a lot.
What's your favorite part? And then I'll let you go after this. What's your favorite part of the entire weekend?
Well, for me, it's on the last day as we are departing, just the smiles and the faces and the way that marriages have changed from Friday night. Just seeing that satisfaction of people saying, we have hope now.
You won't regret it. It is the best investment you'll ever make. Tony, I'll end with you.
And mine is that also, seeing the change in people. I also enjoy that as men, we don't get together very much and just hang out with men as men. And on Sunday morning, there is a breakout session where all the men are together in the ballroom and the ladies are not there. And we get to just enjoy time together as men with men. And that's my favorite part of the weekend.
That is Tony and Vanita Mitchell. They'll be speaking at the upcoming Weekend to Remember Marriage Retreat. It's happening Friday, March 21st through Sunday, the 23rd at the Hyatt Regency in Buffalo. You're listening to the Noon Report on Family Life.
Good afternoon. Here's your Family Life regional weather forecast. A fairly quiet winter afternoon upon us, but it's going to be a little messy tomorrow. Watching an area of low pressure in Kansas that'll be heading northeastbound, and it is going to produce a mix of rain, ice, and snow here, and there could be some travel impacts. For this afternoon, though, we're looking at sunshine and some patchy clouds, high temperatures in the 30s. Clouds will increase tonight. Rain and areas of freezing rain will reach portions of Pennsylvania late. Low temps 20s and low 30s, temperatures rising a bit overnight. Tomorrow it's rain, ice, and snow with high temps in the 30s and low 40s. The best chance of any snow accumulations will be near and north of the Thruway. There'll be a little icy glaze forming. Best chance of that, the eastern Twin Tiers. And then for Saturday, leftover flurries and some sun, much colder, high temps 20.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally at noon, the Mona Lisa's getting a room of her own. Check this out. Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting will be getting its own special exhibition space as part of renovations that are happening at the Louvre in Paris, France. French President Emmanuel Macron announcing this project this week. He says the museum will be redesigned, restored, and expanded. For decades, Louvre officials have complained that its buildings were starting to break down and that overcrowding was having a negative impact on tourists. So the Mona Lisa is on the move. And that's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, January 30th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.